Hello, Pennoyer families. This is Dr. Kristen Kopta, Superintendent of Pennoyer School District here in Norridge. As you know, we serve the communities of Norridge, Harwood Heights, and Norwood Park Township. And I'm here today to talk to you about our November 2022 referendum. Just a little bit about Pennoyer. We currently have about 450 students enrolled, about 55 staff members, and we serve preschool through 8th grade here. Last year, our enrollment was at about 440, and our instructional spending per student was approximately $6,403. And our average class size hovers around about 21.4 students. Just a little history of our school. The Pennoyer family actually settled in this area in the 1830s and decided to start a school in their home. Mr. Pennoyer's daughter was actually the first Pennoyer teacher. Later on, land was donated by the Pennoyer family to build a one-room schoolhouse across the highway over on Canfield and Higgins, what was most recently the Park Ridge VFW, and that was completed in 1841. Then in 1954, a referendum was passed to build this current Pennoyer school that we're here today with on the land that was donated by Mr. Pennoyer. We've had several additions and improvements, but the family spirit of educating our children has not changed. Pennoyer is definitely a family-centered school, and that has a great small atmosphere. So where do our students come from? Our Pennoyer boundaries are a little, they're not connected. So we have a small part of Norridge that is across Cumberland Avenue. And then on the other side of Cumberland Avenue, we have some Norridge and Harwood Heights that is west of Harlem. And then the part of unincorporated Norwood Park Township. And wherever you see in those blue is our tax base. So whatever businesses are in those blue is who we receive taxes from. I know there's always been questions if we get any tax revenue from the mall, but unfortunately the mall is not in our school district boundaries. So our partner high schools, 90% of our students attend Maine South and 10% attend Ridgewood School. When thinking about our students and demographics, you'll see the lime green, the light green bar represents Pennoyer School, and the dark green represents the state average. And you'll see that we mostly are white and Hispanic and a little bit of Asian as far as our student makeup goes, which is a little bit higher than the state average. We only have about 30% low-income students. And again, you can see the dark green represents the state, and they're at about 48% statewide. And a lot of our funding is really based off of the amount of low income that we have. We also have about 10% of our students who receive special ed services, and that can range anywhere from speech and language to autism, to specific learning disabilities, other health impairments, developmental delay. So we do run a special education program here as required by law for our students who receive specialized services. We also support English language learners. We have about 20% of our students are English language learners, and you'll see that is a little bit higher than the state average, which is only at about 13%. Here on this slide, you'll see our state testing. It's called the Illinois Assessment for Readiness. I'd like to note that we did not test in 2020 due to COVID, but you can see that the Pennoyer students consistently outperform the state average. On top is the Pennoyer graph bar, and below is the state. So you'll see over the last 3 assessment cycles on that, our students have overperformed where the state average is. The same in mathematics. And again, we did not take that assessment in 2022. So we're very proud of our students' accomplishments. So where are Pennoyer's funding sources? Public schools receive revenues from 3 different sources, and the bar graph on the right is taken directly from the interactive school report card. So we're looking at the largest part of our revenues come from local taxes, and then we have our state and federal money that we receive. Historically, as I said, our local source, our taxes are our largest part of funding. And most of the state and federal funding can only be spent on specific programming, such as we saw on those slides, such as our special education students, our English language learners, and our students that are at risk due to being low income. So our expenditures, you can see here that, there were many years that our revenues, we were taking in a little bit more than we were expending. So we had some years, especially back in 2016, that we were able to build up our, what we call reserves, and save some money for some capital projects. But you'll see as we started to spend down the reserves and commit to some capital projects that we've done here at the school, we have been spending a little bit beyond what our revenues are. So we are at a point now where we're going to have to really take a look at our budget and not be spending so much on our capital projects as we've been doing these past 6 years. Again, the operating expense per pupil, you'll see the district average is the light green, with the state average being the dark green. And it's broken up into instructional spending on the top and operational spending on the bottom. And the operational spending is the day-to-day running of the building, any capital projects that we do, any building improvements. And on top, the instructional spending is just that. It's what we do. Our teacher salaries are in there. Any programming we have, that's all part of that. And you'll notice that we are always under the state average in both instructional and in operational spending. So I know teacher pay is always a hot topic, but I do want to point out that our teachers are about $15,000 below the state average, and that is the average of all teachers in the state of Illinois. If we compared them to other districts in the surrounding area, it could be as much as $20,000 difference. But you'll see our teachers, again, in the light green, are well below the state average in teacher pay. So how do school districts increase their funding? Public school districts in Illinois can generate additional revenue by either increasing the local property tax through a ballot vote referendum. You can do one of two. It can be a general property tax increase that stays on the property taxes forever, or a bond issue that's typically about 20 years. And I like to equate that to a home equity loan. You're issuing some bonds that is voted on by the general public that lives within the Pennoyer School District. And that is the referendum that we have on the November 8th ballot. It is a bond issuance only for capital project, cannot be used for salaries, only for the improvement of the school building. And that's typically 20 years. And once that is paid off, then it comes off your taxes. There's also school districts can also issue non-referendum bonds, and these bonds are typically capped and limited to capital projects. They typically last for about 20 years before they can be reissued. And actually, the Pennoyer Board of Education, about a year and a half ago, did issue about $2.7 million in non-referendum bonds, so that the HVAC project that we're currently doing right now at Pennoyer could be completed. So we fall under what's called the property tax extension limitation law. And we are really not able to inflate our taxes to gain any money. So while every year due to inflation, taxes do go up a little bit, we're limited on what that can be due to that law. So just how do we rate with our partner districts? And earlier, I mentioned that our students go to both Maine South, which is in School District 207, and Ridgewood School District 234. And you'll see these are the feeder schools. These are the other elementary schools that feed into those two school districts. And you'll see here that we are the second lowest property tax rate. And of course, that's based off of your assessed home value. So when you look at, for instance, Park Ridge 64, you're looking at about 1.5% higher tax rate for the assessed home value, which goes directly to that school district. So when you look at what their per pupil spending is, both for academics and operation, of course, it's going to be higher because they're generating much more money. So the last referendum passed for Pennoyer was 1998, which was 24 years ago, and that was for a limiting rate increase. So why are we asking the voters for a building bond referendum? You'll see kind of the history of our building. Our original building was built. There was a small addition of what was then the gym, but now we refer to as the multi-purpose room. There was an addition to the east side of the original building for some classrooms as Pennoyer grew. We saw 2 more sets of additions. And then, of course, in 2001, the board issued some non-referendum bonds to put the addition of the gym, some bathrooms, and offices. So it's been really 55 years since we invested in the academic structure of Pennoyer School. So just looking at our systems and structures, we are coming down to the end of life expectancy. Although we're in the middle of changing into a new HVAC project, we are keeping our boilers. They still do have about 20 to 15 years of life left. We do have 2 rooftop units that we were unable to afford to replace that we'd be looking to replace. We'd be looking at doing some repairs to our roof, redoing all the bathrooms that are original to the building. We did do a project a couple years ago where we completely renovated 5 bathrooms and brought them up to ADA standards and put in some water fountains that have filtered water, so that mitigates the lead situation. And then, of course, our windows are coming to that life end. And so over the past 6 years, the Board of Education has approved over $5.575 million in capital projects without increasing the local taxes. But as I explained in a previous slide, we're unable to take out of reserves anymore. And now we have to look to be putting back a little bit for reserves. And we're going to have to really scale back on any capital project. And this is why the board is going to the public, the taxpayers, to ask if this would be a possible funding source, building bond referendum. So our current Pennoyer realities, we're not ADA compliant. You'll see we have very narrow stairways throughout the building. We're unable to even put a chairlift on them. So it's not accessible to the second or lower level. And it's impossible for our disabled students and faculty to go up or down. Someone did ask me what happens if we had a student in a wheelchair. We would have to move all of their classes to the first floor, which means right now our primary grades are on the first floor, which means they would probably have to move upstairs or downstairs to facilitate for that. Our middle school science lab is no longer functioning. We did have high lead levels in those pipes, which forced us to shut the water off. Also, the gas lines are no longer good for the Bunsen burners. Again, this is original to the 1955 building, and we just can't afford to repair this out of the general budget. We use those lab stations just for additional work spaces for those overcrowded middle school classes. These are our locker rooms, not been renovated again since the building was built over 60 years ago. They're small and narrow and have limited privacy. The locker rooms are also located at a different location than the gym, which requires students to either walk outside or through the special education wing to access the gym. The plumbing in much of the student areas of the building is original and beyond their useful life and are not ADA compliant. You can see we have put up new dividers, but we're unable to change the footprint of those bathrooms without making them ADA accessible. And most of the water fountains did test positive for lead, which required us to shut them off. As I did mention, we did put in most recently in 2020 with a construction project, we did 2 water fountains that do have filtered water and water fillers. So those are the 2 water fountains that the whole school uses, all 450 students. We've also tried updating lighting, painting the stalls in the bathrooms, but they really need to be completely renovated and brought up to today's code. We've had several asbestos abatements through the building as part of our 2017 life safety recommendations. A lot of those were paid for through a state of Illinois $50,000 maintenance matching grant. But we've had no money to replace the flooring. Most of our classrooms still just have the concrete floor. And actually, there are 3 interior classrooms that do not have any natural or fresh light or air. And we're hoping that the referendum would address these spaces. So our ADA and life safety, again, as I mentioned, the building is not accessible to people who are either permanently or temporarily disabled. We actually had a faculty member last year who broke her ankle and was able to access the 2nd floor or the lower level. Our stairs are too narrow to install a lift. And, one way that our faculty member that had the broken ankle did access is she'd have to walk outside and use the ramp to access that lower level. And the doorways and bathrooms are not all accessible. The fire alarm system is mostly original to the building and requires a complete replacement. And most drinking fountains are shut off due to testing positive for lead. The only way to remediate this is to replace the plumbing and water fountains. And the locker room spaces are just not adequate for our students. So what would this current $7.9 million, this November 8th referendum fund? A small addition to accommodate new locker rooms and some classroom spaces, a renovation of existing classrooms, and an addition of a new media center, maker space, and STEM lab. So we would be moving the current science lab down to where we have the media center. We'd be flip-flopping those 2 spaces, and that would make the media center more accessible to our students and families. And we would be using the space upstairs for that on the main floor. Bathroom and plumbing renovations and updates, ADA updates to include an elevator, complete fire system update, which would be the panel, which is original to the 1956 building, and to complete all 10-year life safety work. And this is at the cost of approximately $225 per year over 20 years for the average home. And we do have more specific information on that at our Pennoyer referendum tab at our tax calculator on our website. The ballot question on the November 8th, 2022 referendum ballot will read, shall the Board of Education of Pennoyer School District number 79, Cook County, Illinois, alter, repair, equip, and improve the existing school building, including but not limited to constructing improvements for life safety, aging infrastructure, mechanical and plumbing systems, bathroom and drinking fountains, and issue bonds of said school district in the amount of $7.9 million for the purpose of paying the cost thereof. So we're hoping that not only our infrastructure will be improved, but we'll be improving learning spaces for our students and providing them with that 21st century learning opportunities and curriculum possibilities. So if you're not registered to vote, you can register in person at the DMV or Village Hall. You can also register up till Sunday, October 23rd online. We've missed the postmark for the Tuesday, October 11th mail-in, or you can register in person on the day of voting at your precinct. For more information, check out the Cook County Clerk government website on how to register to vote. So how to vote, early voting. Everyone can early vote at the Norridge Village Hall starting Monday, October 24th through Monday, November 7th. Their hours, they have Saturday and Sunday hours as well. Mail-in ballots are available, must be postmarked by Tuesday, November 8th. And of course, election day voting at your precinct on Tuesday, November 8th. And again, for more information on that, visit the Cook County Clerk website. Just some sources of where we pulled data today for this presentation: the Cook County Clerk, the Illinois Interactive Report Card, the Illinois State Board of Education, and then of course our Pennoyer School District website. I encourage you, if you have any questions, to please visit our referendum website or reach out to me, Dr. Kristen Kopta, at kcopta@pennoyerschool.org. Thank you so much for your time.